Hey guys, MotorCarNut here, and today we're rebuilding a Subaru EJ25 block. This block is a very popular block. Subaru made it from in the 80s all the way up to today. Different variations of the heads, double overhead, single overhead cam, timing belt chain. But basically the block itself is it's pretty much unchanged. And today we're going to rebuild it. And I'm going to show you how to do it step by step. Okay, so the first thing in rebuilding the block, after it's split, I have other video on how to split the block. That was an FB25, but same way basically you split it. Anyway, what we're gonna do now is we have the new bearings in. Okay, you put all the bearings in, you clean up all the surfaces where they're gonna mate. Okay. Crankshaft is sit in position. Two rods are already in their holes. These two are getting ready when we put the other one on top. You're going to need special O-rings for here, and here. I'll put them in the link, but for the big one, I'll put it right here so you can see it. That's the big one, the orange one. And then the three little ones. That's for the three little ones, okay? Now we're gonna install those. And the crank itself is a new crank from Subaru. You can get it, you can look online. I have ways that you can get this crank a lot cheaper factory. If you look up your crank on the dealer website, okay? And you'll see how many variations of engines it fits in, and you can find the cheapest crank. It's the same exact crank. For instance, this crank may be more money in an Impreza than it is in a Forester. For some reason, I don't know. But it's the same exact part number. All right, I have a video on that, how to get parts cheaper. You can look up that video. So this crank, it has one rod failed, so I replaced, of course, it has new bearings in here. And this is one rod that failed. I'm replacing the crankshaft, this rod, and of course all new bearings. And these connecting rod caps, the nuts are 34 foot-pounds. Okay, so you know that. And that's where we are right now. I'm going to put the O-rings in and take it from there. I just want to note that, see, these O-rings are a little bit different. You see, it's like an O-ring, but then it has like a little gasket lip. Don't use a regular O-ring. Buy these, because this is the block that's going to be, this is a critical point, and you would have to take the whole engine apart just to replace this if it did leak or lose oil pressure. So that's just a side note. Just use these. If you're going to use anything factory, use these. All right, and they go like that right there. Now, the part number I just gave you for these O-rings, they're the same ones for the oil pump. Over here. Okay, it's the same ones for that one. Okay, so now you're gonna put gasket maker. You can use this one, the Permatex Ultra Black, good quality sealant. And what you're gonna do, you're gonna seal it. You see, this is where it connects. All right, so from here back, you don't have to worry about too much, and you don't want to get any gasket maker squeezing out onto the bearing. That's not good. But there's going to be the water pump here. The oil pump here. So from basically from here back, you go around. You go all the way around here. This is with the gasket maker up to here, and up to here again. Here we're going to have the rear main seal here. So you stop right here. And you try to get around that hole a little bit, okay? Same thing over here, around this hole here, and the same thing on the back side, okay? I'll show you what the gasket maker looks like, and then what you're gonna do is just lift it, put it on top, and then we're gonna torque down the bolts. So now, you see how I did it? All right, all the way around on the outskirts. And over here, I just did it where the holes are. All right, this is where the O-rings are gonna go here, 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 and here, so you don't put none there. And just on the edges on both sides. A lighter coat on here, and on this one, a little bit thicker coat. And you keep in mind, like I said, when it's gonna squish, you don't want it to squish into the bearings. This is very thin over here. And even though the block bolts do have washers on them, okay? They do have washers to prevent oil creeping up, but I put a thin layer for extra protection. And where the O-rings are, I just put a light coating near them, all right, on both sides. And now we're gonna just flip it over and put it together. Like so, and get some kind of a mallet, you know, a rubber or wooden mallet, and let's like pack it down nice and evenly, and then we're gonna put the bolts in. Okay, and don't ever wipe the seams. You may want to wipe it to make it look. You can take out the gasket maker and cause a leak. Just let it dry that way, and if it bothers you when it's dry, you can take a razor blade and go around, you know, and skim off the edges. Now, there's bolts on both sides of this thing, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put bolts here and here, a couple over here. All right, and then see if there's any on the top over here. I forget if they're on this side or the other side. And then once you just tighten them down a little bit, then we can flip it over and then install the other ones, and then we're gonna torque them. Okay, there are two long ones that go here. One here and one here. I'm gonna put these two here. Then we have another one here. And then I'm gonna put these three. Then flip it over. All right, to get to this bolt, install that bolt, there's gonna be a knock sensor here. Just take the knock sensor off if yours is not already off. So we got 1, 2, 3, two long ones in here. Over here, semi-long one, 1, 2, and then one right here, okay? Snug them up to about 30 pounds, and then we're gonna flip the block and do the rest of the bolts, which is 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? I'm gonna flip it over now. Actually, one over here, I just put it in. One more. Okay, and keep a note that the ones that have the gaskets on them, they go in the water jacket holes over here. The one on the edges over here is just a regular gasket like this one. A regular washer, I mean. All right, and they go in the two outside. Those are the only two different long ones. Okay? And over here, we're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, and the outside ones is 6. You got one bolt here. Okay, then you have this bolt that goes here. And actually before, when I said the 3 ones over here, 4, there was actually another one right here. Then, after you snug them up, tighten the 12-point long ones, all the 12 points to 37 foot-pounds, all of them, okay? Even the 6 points over here, all to 37 pounds. And the ones you can't get to, like the one underneath, like the 10 millimeter here, you just do with a wrench as tight as you can, maybe 15 pounds. Just as tight as you can, nice, don't strip it. All right, because you can't get a torque wrench on there. I don't think you can. And you should be good to go. And when you torque them in a sequence like a head gasket. 1, 2, 3, 4, flip it over, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then do the top ones. The main ones, you know, you do them in a sequence like from the inside out on both sides. It ain't that critical, you know, but you don't want to cock it or nothing like that. So once it's set in, that's how you do it. Okay, 37 foot-pounds is the long ones, the 12 points in the cylinder, long bolts. The ones on the top over here are 22 pounds, not 37. All right, I double checked that. My manual said 37, they're not 37, they're 22. Because I was starting to torque them, I'm like, this doesn't seem right. So I went back, Mitchell on Demand said one thing, All Data said another. So they're 22, these type, all right? and the big one's in the cylinder 37. Okay, so after you torque that all down, now we're going to put the rear main seal in. Part number is right here. You can pause it. All right. And what I like to do is put the new seal in, tapping it in with the old seal. So you don't damage the new seal. You don't want to make a dent in the seal because it could leak. And put some assembly lube on the lip of the seal like I did, so you don't have dry contact. Just right on the lip over here, not on the outside. And how I like to do it is you line it up and push it in slow, all the way around like that until it's pretty much in over here. Now you're going to take a hammer and tap over here evenly. You want it evenly in, just below the aluminum surface, even all the way around. Don't push too much because then you have to take the seal out and you'll ruin it. Okay, like that. You see how it's just in a little bit? All the way around the same? That's how you want it. Okay, so now we're going to install the pistons, and we're going to install the pistons on the rear first, so we can, after we're done with the two pistons from side to side, we can put the flywheel on and mount it on a stand to do the others. It's easy to do it that way. But anyway, when you install the pistons, you have to be careful because you see it has a mark here and a dimple, and it says right and a left. You see there's a left. And the left side of the engine is always the driver's side. So if this is the rear of the engine, that's the front of the car. Driver's on this side, this is the left side. Why that matters is because these pistons have indents. Okay, you see these indents are deeper than these. So these indents are for intake valves because they're larger and they open up more. Perfect example is over here. You see, let me put the light on. You see these valves are larger than the exhaust valves, so that's why these are oriented a certain way. It's usually like that on every engine, but this one they're not all on a line. They're from side to side, right and left, so that's why there's an L and an R. All right, so you see the indent over here is more deeper, so this piston will go like this. All right, so this being right now is the back of the engine. This is the passenger side. This says right. That dimple goes towards the front. So this piston goes in. All right. It goes in like this. You understand? Here or here. Okay, so now before we put the pistons, you want to make sure your piston ring end gap is at the right spec. What you do is you take a piston and you push it in the cylinder about an inch. You square it in nice and straight. And then you're going to take a feeler gauge and measure that gap. That gap has to be within the specs that Subaru wants. If it's too tight, you can file it. I have videos on how to do that. All right, if it's too large, you got the wrong rings and you have to start all over with new ones. And you do that with the first, second, and oil control ring. Then you put them in, oriented the proper way. Dot here, front. This is the right side. This is the right side of the engine, passenger side. You put a ring compressor right on here. You tighten them up. And then you just push it in. And the key is to have it lined up with the connecting rod. You may have to move the connecting rod a little bit, and as you're sliding the piston in, it's not as hard as it seems. And then we're gonna put the wrist pin in. See, and you line it up like that. It's hard to see on the camera. And another thing, before you put the piston in, you have to make sure you put the circlip on the back side. All right, because once you put the piston in, you won't be able to put the other one in, obviously. That's just a tip. So now we're going to install the wrist pin. And You oil it up a little bit with some assembly lube. You slide it in, you tap it in slowly until it's a little bit past where you're gonna put the other circlip, and then it's completed. Okay, so you see, as I have it in there, it's past that little groove. It's hard to see. It's past the little groove there. Now you can put the circlip in there, and that piston's completed. And we do that for all 4 of them. I'm not going to show you each one. Okay, circlip installed. Now you put the plug, put a little silicone gasket maker around here, put that plate on, and over here is going to have an O-ring. Put a little extra silicone on there, and you have your 2, I think those were the Torx 30s. We tighten those up after we've done the other piston, and this way we can put the flywheel on. That will do next. Okay, we got it back on the stand. I put the flywheel on. It has the 8 bolts over there, and this flywheel only goes on one way. If you turn it a little, you're gonna notice that you'll get 1 bolt in, but you won't get the others in, so you have to turn it until all 8 bolts match. Is it 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. 8 bolts match, you put them in there, torque it down. All right, I mounted it back on the stand, and now we're gonna put the heads on. Okay, to clean the surfaces, I like using a single edge razor blade straight up, cleaning it back and forth all the way with a little bit of carburetor cleaner. Make sure you lube a little bit on the inside of the cylinders with engine oil, a little bit. Make sure it's spotless and clean, no crumbs, no gook. All right, and when you get gaskets, if you're gonna not use any, no aftermarket, OEM gaskets, if you're only gonna use one, it should be the head gaskets. All right, don't skimp on them. They're not that expensive. These are the part number for this engine, the EJ25. Same thing over here. You clean them all off nice and clean. Okay, and then we're just gonna put the gasket on and put the head on, and we're gonna put the bolts in. All right, and a quick note, a lot of times these gaskets, they have a top. It says top, and obviously that goes on the top, or if it has writing. However, this one does have writing right there, but it doesn't go this way, even though it fits. You see, look at this. It belongs over here, so this has to be flipped upside down, like so. So now your oil passages, everything lines up, all right? Now, unlike the FB engines that have a timing chain and they stick out a little bit where you have to put a little silicone, these you don't put no gasket maker at all. Okay, and what you do is you put a little oil on the heads here and on the washers and a little bit on the threads. You put them in, and we're gonna do a torque sequence that Subaru wants. It's a funny torque sequence, so you gotta pay attention. Okay, so now I just put the oil pickup tube here, and this deflector. It's just all 10mm bolts. You torque them down, 81 inch-pounds. All right, and after that, make sure you have the gasket here, a little O-ring, a little rubber seal. I put a little bit extra sealant on there. We have the gasket make all the way around. I'm gonna put them down there and then torque them to 89 inch-pounds. Next, I replaced the front crank seal. Get a seal tool like this, puller, pops it out. All right, part number for the front crank seal. And over here, you're gonna have an O-ring that goes here. And it was the same as I told you before when we were doing the block, putting the block together. It's the same part number. That's it right there. It's like a little funny O-ring with a lip on the end. Okay, we're gonna clean up this gasket, put that new seal on, and then just gasket make the whole perimeter, except where that seal goes, and install it. Okay, when you put the water pump on, the gasket, you could put a dry if it's a brand new gasket, or you could put a thin layer of silicone sealer on both sides of the gasket. It's up to you. This was brand new when I got the engine, so I'm reusing it. It's a new one. They just put it on about a month ago. And so I just put a thin sealer on the gasket and tighten those, the same thing. 89 inch-pounds. And then there's this little piece that's right here. It's got 12 millimeter, 1, 2, and 3. Just put this on. I'm going to install this. And when you put the crank gear over here, you see, make sure you have that pin right here so it slides in and it doesn't turn. Make sure, that's very important. Okay, so after I did that, I put the pulleys on. You can freeze this video if you want to see how they go on. And the timing belt tensioner, you have to get a vice grip, not a vice, a screw clamp, and push this pin down so you can slide a pin in. I use a drill bit. So once you have the belt on and everything is aligned, you let go of that pin and it puts tension on the belt. That's where we are now. We're going to install the belt now. Okay, and this is how it looks with the belt installed. You may want to pause the video to check the timing marks. You have a mark here and a mark right here on the oil pump housing. All right. Now, you put a factory timing belt on, it's going to have dotted lines and 2 solid lines. The dotted lines is for the crankshaft one. And make sure, let's say if you got a Subaru belt, the writing of the writing Subaru is facing you so you can read it. All right, like over here. So you know it's facing the right way because you can throw it off a little bit if you do it the opposite way. Over here, there's a little seam in the head where the other cradle attaches. Matches up with this mark and the timing belt mark. Okay, and the same thing over here. This one has a notch on the plastic cover, and that lines up with this mark on the cam and that mark there. And then once you're all good, then you can pull the pin out like that. It's a hydraulic pin. It's going to put pressure, and you give it like 2 or 3 rotations, and you check your marks again. You're not going to see the mark on the belt, but you will see the mark on the sprocket and the block. Sprocket, block, sprocket, and the timing color. Okay, to know your own timing, and then the timing's fine. Okay, I spinned it 2 complete revolutions. All right, and you see what I'm saying? Don't worry about that mark now. That doesn't matter. This matters now. Mark here, mark there is good. Mark here, mark on the block is good. Mark on the cam, mark on the right there is good. You understand what I'm saying? And you're set, you put your timing covers on. That's what I'll do right now. Okay, and after that, we put the coolant cross tube on. Make sure you use new O-rings. We have 10 millimeters, 89 inch-pounds, all 4 of them. We'll take it from there. All right, engine's upside down, harmonic balancer, torque it to 120 pounds, foot-pounds. You have motor mounts. They are left and right, so, you really can't mess them up. They won't mount up. Torque those down, 45, 50 pounds on both sides. Okay, so now the torque sequence is going to be A, B, C, D, E, and F. Okay? Now, first torque spec, what you're going to do, and you have to go in that order. And then when you are, you're going to be required to loosen them, you start with D, and then you go to, you start with F, then you go, backwards to A. All right, so first torque is going to be 30 foot-pounds of torque. After the 30, you're going to make it 70 pounds of torque. After the 70, you're going to go backwards and loosen them 180 degrees, and then backwards again 180 degrees. So basically, they're all going to be loose again. Then you're going to tighten them in the sequence, 8 foot-pounds, then 22 foot-pounds, then 44 foot-pounds, then they want it 90-degree angle torque. So 90 degree would be like this, straight, okay? That's 90 degrees, okay? So you do 90 degrees, same thing. Then you do 45 degrees, which is, this is 90, this will be 45, okay? And then you do 45 degrees, and then an additional 45 degrees, and then the torque sequence is done. Now, on the JB engines, it's a little bit different. FB engines is a little bit different. So this is for the EJ25. Earlier models and maybe later models, I don't know, this is a 2012, so it could be different, a little bit different, but that's the torque spec that I see. I've seen all different types of torque specs, so this is the one I'm working on. Probably it's going to be yours, but you should verify it with your service manual. Okay, again with the torque specs, so you have them, is 30 foot-pounds, 70 foot-pounds. Loosen 180 degrees, loosen another 180 degrees. Then tighten 8 foot-pounds. Then tighten 22 foot-pounds. Then tighten 44 foot-pounds. Then tighten 90 degrees. Then tighten 45 degrees. And then tighten another 45 degrees, and the sequence is done. And you do the same thing with the other head. Okay, so now we're going to adjust the valves. The Subaru wants them done cold. This is the best time to do it. Now you need a couple little specs and to know what you're doing. Okay. This is the cylinder locations is 1 is on the passenger side front, 3 is in the back, 2 driver's side front, 4 in the back. Those are the locations, okay? Now, put it at top dead center. You have a mark here and a 0. Now, that could either be top dead center or bottom dead center. How do you tell? Is you could put like a little tissue paper here, take the spark plug out, crank it clockwise, and you'll see it blow out. If it sucks in, it's on intake. If it blows out, it's on compression, and then you just crank it once it's on compression to that 0, so you know you're at number 1. Okay? And number 1 valves can be adjusted. These are the intakes up here, and the exhaust down there. Now, these are the specs. You may want to pause the video, write them down. That's the intake specs. This is millimeter, this is inches, millimeter and inches. All right, you get your feeler gauge, you set it in between those, whatever the minimum and maximum is, and you adjust them. If they're too tight or too loose, you can take screwdriver and open and wrench, 10 millimeter, and adjust them until it's slight, with a slight drag. It slides in with a slight drag and no play once you put it in. Once you put the feeler gauge in, I mean. All right? And then, now the firing order on this engine is 1, 3, 2, 4. So now what you're going to do, you have it at top dead center for the number 1, 180 degrees. So you're over here is 180 degrees is going to be over here. So you turn it clockwise to 180 degrees, and now you adjust number 3. And then another 180 degrees, you adjust number 2, and then the last, another 180 degrees, you adjust number 4. That's how you do it. Okay, and then you put the cam covers on. You torque these to 60 inch-pounds, all 6 of them on both sides. What else did I do? I put the heater core pipe. I snaked it through here, put that one on, and I put the filler on. What else did I do? That's about else. And what I'm going to do now, as I zoom it in, is I'm going to put it in the car this way. If I put the intake manifold on, it's harder to get to the converter bolts and to the starter. It's just easier to do all of that, mount it up to the transmission first, and then just put that the intake manifold over there. Just put that on it. That's how I like doing it. All right, so right now we're going to stop it, and then I'm going to continue this once I start putting it in the car. Okay, put the engine in. So now I'm just going to put the, well, the accessories don't have nothing to do with the engine rebuild. I'm going to put the intake manifold on. The intake manifold has a lot of pieces. Let me show you over here. It's all one thing, but it's got to kind of go on together. It's got all the electrical connectors, EGR tube that goes here. Make sure the gaskets are there. Clean the surfaces. And all the wire harness is basically on top of this, so it's got to be a little finesse to put it on. Okay, and the intake gaskets They have like a little pin over here where they go in right there. So you know you got it good, and it holds it in while you're putting the manifold on. Okay, so after you install the, you have 12 millimeter bolts. There's 4 and 4 on the sides of the intake manifold. Torque them down to 30 foot-pounds. Make sure you don't pinch any wires. Hook up all the other wires, and from there on, you're good to go. All right, guys, MotorCarNut, please subscribe, hit the like button. Any questions or I missed something you lost, give me a question. I answer all my comments, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much for watching.